Hello, everyone. I'm Rosemary Coates here in Silicon Valley. I'm your host for this edition of the Frictionless Supply Chain podcast. I'm the executive director of the Reshoring Institute, where we help companies bring back or expand their manufacturing in America. And I'm also a contributing writer to Supply Chain Management Review. Today, I'm delighted to be joined by Kaitlyn Glancy, the Vice President of North America at Flexport. She's responsible for sales and account management of Flexport's North American offices. And Flexport is a supply chain services provider, a freight forwarder, a customs broker. But this company has really taken a fresh and creative approach to the industry. I'm going to let Kaitlyn tell you all about that in just a minute. So let's get started. Hello, Kaitlyn.
Hi, how are you doing? Thanks for having me.
Yeah, great. Let's start out by telling us, if you would tell the audience about your background and how you came to be involved in this crazy industry of ours.
Absolutely. I think like most people in supply chain and logistics, more or less accidentally fell into it. So started my career at PricewaterhouseCoopers in our consulting division and just ended up working, on various projects related to supply chain, fell in love with it, saw the challenges that even the big, Fortune 500 companies were tackling related to supply chain and logistics. So when I found Flexport, I've been here for about 8 years now, and I found Flexport, this really young, innovative, forward-thinking, technology-driven company that really wanted to change the game of global logistics, make it easy for everybody to trade around the world, fell in love with it. And so joined in San Francisco and have been part of this journey for many years. And it's been just incredible growth, incredible opportunity to be a part of this industry. And I love every minute of it.
That's terrific. And you have a really impressive educational background also. Can you tell us about that?
Thank you. That's very kind of you. Yeah. So I went to undergraduate at UCLA. So I'm a very proud UCLA Bruin, originally from California, and actually joined Flexport in San Francisco. And then as part of my journey with Flexport, I moved out to New York City as we were expanding globally. And then with Flexport, also had the fortune of getting my MBA at Columbia, and I still live here in New York.
Terrific. That's fantastic. You're an accountant by training, I take it also, right?
I am. So, I'm friends with the CFO and our finance folks, which isn't always necessarily true for us people in sales, but my CFO and I are best friends.
That's terrific. Good for you. And Price Waterhouse, as you mentioned too, which is a great training ground for anybody in business. And I think That's wonderful. You have that background. That's great.
It was a great place to start your career, and I can't recommend it enough to anybody.
So, I've been watching Flexport for a while. I have some other friends that work there, and it's always impressed me as being really creative and different from the traditional freight forwarder or, what we consider to be the traditional brokerage and, moving freight and so forth. I always get the impression whenever I see anything about Flexport that it's sort of fresh and energetic and creative and all these things. Tell us about the company and what kind of projects that you are engaged with and how you help your customers.
Absolutely. When we first started at Flexport, or when I first started, 8 years ago, when you look at the landscape and especially where we are now, Flexport's one of the only major players that was started after the internet, which is a pretty crazy statistic, right? And so that I think has always been one of our differentiating factors, the fact that Flexport is built on the cloud. We have the very traditional Silicon Valley engineering product focus first. And what that's allowed us to do is always move fast because we're not encumbered by old technology systems. But like I said, building everything in the cloud allows you to build, develop, create, move things in and out real time and really see what resonates and what value propositions stick with customers. And then there's, of course, this huge part of the Flexport culture that is just never satisfied, that we always want to stay ahead of the curve. For me, running our sales and account management teams, of course, part of the role is going out and communicating the current Flexport value prop, why you should want to work with Flexport. But a lot of it is hearing from our customers directly and hearing what are problems that are still not solved for them via technology and bringing that back, like I said, to our engineers and our product managers to say, how do we build, better order management platforms? How do we build better BCO management platforms? How do we build better last mile delivery products for our clients so that they really get end-to-end visibility into their supply chain? And how can Flexport be that platform that helps our supply chain leaders do their jobs better, help them be able to focus on the businesses that they're part of, the strategies that they're part of, and just trust that their supply chain is running smoothly with Flexport. And so we're really excited, in particular, I would say, on 2 technology lines that we're working on right now. One of them is more geared towards the SMB segment. So, small, medium-sized shippers, building a true end-to-end platform for them that allows them to, almost self-serve, book online, quote online, see everything happen for them and just make it a very seamless experience. And then on the other side, as you go up market, working with really, really big shippers, there's a huge desire to also have a different type of end-to-end system where Flexport may or may not be your freight forwarder. We may or may not be your customs broker, but you have a platform where you can see everything and you can have various players doing different parts for your supply chain.
Wow, that's fantastic. So, across the board visibility, right? For end-to-end visibility.
Exactly.
Can you give us some examples of how you've solved those customer problems? You don't have to give us the names of the companies, but give us some examples of how you've applied those solutions to a customer.
Yeah, I think you definitely see it a lot with smaller companies, right? That didn't necessarily have visibility into, hey, did my supplier, overseas actually get my purchase order? Is it processing? Has it left their factory door or not? Has it gated in at the origin port or not? Has it cleared through origin customs? And then, of course, is it in transit to, let's say, the United States in this hypothetical example? And, where is it now? When am I actually going to get that cargo? And I think just giving our customers that end to like step by step, hey, it is in fact, at your factory door. We have a truck that's coming to get it. It is now at the port. It is in transit on the water, and just showing and giving that visibility and that control and that comfort so that our customers can plan their supply chain. They can plan their product launches. They can communicate successfully internally. That is just a huge value prop. And it's funny because I think we take for granted sometimes that some of our end-to-end visibility here, when you order something online, once it's in the US, it's pretty easy to see when it's going to show up. But that visibility from when it gets factory here to the US is not always the easiest thing, but Flexport is making that easier and more transparent.
Yeah, I think it's part of a bigger trend in consumerism, where people, have been taught, especially by Amazon, to expect visibility and to know when things are going to be delivered on time, and expecting to tick off the marks along the way. Even the US Post Office, starts showing you what station it's in and so forth if you look up online on something that you ship with them. So I think the bigger population is expecting this from all the people, all the supply chain players in the industry, to create this kind of visibility. And you must be way ahead of the curve providing this information. And so all of this is online too, is that right?
Correct. All of it is online. And so the great thing about that is, as I was saying, it's all built in the cloud. So our customers have access to the same information that my team has access to. So it's not like customer has to call me because they think I'm sitting on some secret separate information that I need to push into the system. That, when we have all of these milestone updates I'm talking about, carrier, trucker visibility updates, those are all just automatically pushed into the platform real time for the customer. Probably the feature that our clients love the most is we have a big map of the world as your home dashboard, and you can literally watch your shipments cross the Pacific Ocean or cross the Atlantic Ocean. You can see when it's at the Port of LA. You can see when our trucker is going and picking it up. And so that similar experience that customers get, with Amazon when the package is on the way to their home, you get that with Flexport, and you can literally watch your shipment as it moves around the world, or bulks of shipments, right? And that's the other highly valuable thing, is seeing, once you extrapolate that, and you might be a customer that has hundreds of global shipments going on, or even thousands at any given time, knowing which SKUs are in which containers, which SKUs might be air freighted in for a big product launch, and just being able to see that in one map, one platform, one place, and know that it's the most accurate and up-to-date information is a huge value add for our stakeholders and for, various stakeholders within any business unit. So not just necessarily the supply chain folks, but buyers, the finance team, the executive team, giving everybody the ability to access that information at the same time.
That's fantastic. So I can just imagine looking at, watching your shipment move around the world. Pretty spectacular.
It's honestly pretty fun. Sometimes I just go and look at our customer stuff too.
Yeah, sort of entertainment, right? Supply chain entertainment.
Exactly. For us supply chain nerds, we're easy, right?
Absolutely. Well, that's great news. And I suspect that makes you more efficient as well. And probably takes cost out of systems. I mean, you don't have to answer the phone and explain to somebody if their cargo's been picked up or whatever. It's already automated and in a system, so you extract that labor out of your process.
Absolutely. And so, at Flexport, of course, if any of our customers are listening, we will pick up your phone call every time.
Sure.
But on the operations side, right? Yes, ideally it's automated as much as possible, that you're not asking, hey, where is my shipment? Is it actually coming tomorrow? That should just be a given, and we can trust the data and the underlying operators and operating system that yes, everything we're doing is moving according to the plan, so that when we are communicating with our customers, it's more on the strategic side to say, hey, how do we plan for, this big holiday season, product launches that you might have? What are our different options there? Hey, we see that inventory on the West Coast is selling out faster than inventory on the East Coast. Do we want to change some of our routing guides? So it changes the conversation that our teams are having with our customers. And I would say it up-levels those conversations, and it's no longer, tracking type shipments. Where
Sure.
is it? Right. And more of those tactical things that we're just trusting that is happening. And it allows us to really help our customers, think more strategically about their supply chain. How do we save them costs? How do we improve transit times? And that's really the conversation that I find our stakeholders want to engage in with us.
Yeah, I agree with you in terms of looking at more strategic solutions, but also, it's in my opinion, what I've seen, and I've been around for a long time, is people in supply chain management are these days more sophisticated, better educated, more strategic thinkers, instead of just being worried about execution. I mean, back in the day, I can remember thinking I had to make sure all the shipments got off the dock at the end of the day, right? And in today's environment, you're thinking about, customer order fulfillment on time and other metrics, as well as taking advantage of the best pricing and so forth.
Exactly.
I mean, it's much more complicated and sophisticated than it was, say, 25 years ago or so. So it warms my heart. It makes me feel good that that Flexport is, on that bandwagon and really helping customers see the future and offering services that make it more appropriate in today's environment to operate a supply chain.
I completely agree. And I think there was a great article a couple years ago. I think it was maybe Forbes or Fortune put it out that the chief supply chain officer will be the next CEO. And ironically, that came out before COVID. So I think they were onto something, because suddenly the chief supply chain officer absolutely was a very, very critical part of the executive team over the last several years.
Absolutely. Yeah, I see that too in the consulting world, where supply chain now you're dealing with a chief supply chain officer. Somebody that is on the executive team and thinking about the global business in a way that was never appreciated, I think, in the past. We spent a lot of time looking at finance and costs and marketing and so forth, and never the operations portion of it. So that's great. Okay. So, we've seen a lot of issues in supply chain over the past couple years, working through COVID, and gosh, the swings in rates and the big increases in costs and the port congestion and on and on and on. And, opening factories and closing factories in China and, dealing with all this stuff that we never saw before. And now it seemed to be settling down a little bit, things are a little calmer and prices are going down. It's a little bit better. So what strategic ideas are out there now? What are your customers thinking about, and preparing for the future? What kind of ideas are going forward?
Yeah, so when we're in front of customers today, I'd say the themes that I'm consistent, probably three main themes that we're hearing and chatting about a lot with our clients today. The first main discussion item is inventory. So what are they doing with the inventory that they have on hand? And what you're seeing for the large majority of at least the customers I've been chatting with is, there was this huge, at one point they didn't have enough inventory during the height of COVID, so they brought in a lot of stuff. And now a lot of them are sitting on a bit too much inventory. And so it's being thoughtful and strategic about which SKUs are actually selling through and replenishing those orders, driving new product launches to keep sales coming in the door, and then figuring out what are we going to do with the slow moving or non-moving inventory. So that's part of the conversation. Also part of the conversation, when do we expect maybe some of those slower moving SKUs, but as they're moving out of our warehouses, when do we expect to start replenishing those and doing our best to forecast, right? The American consumer can be a bit of a fickle consumer, as we know. And so doing our best with the crystal ball to say, when do we think is going to be the appropriate time to really start increasing orders again? For visibility, most of what I'm hearing from clients is they expect a lot of the excess inventory they have on hand. Plan is that they'll sell through most of that by, late Q2, early Q3, and we should expect to see more orders coming in the back half of the year. So certainly, what are we going to do with our inventory? What's our inventory position? How do we plan for orders throughout the calendar year is one of the big topics. I'd say a second big topic of no surprise is cost and margin management. As you already alluded to, cost just went through the roof, right? Rates for a container from China to the US West Coast went above $20,000 per container, which I can't believe we ever saw that. And now, thankfully, those rates are back down to $1,200 per container. So a 20x delta in rates, but that's good. The $1,200 per container rate level is back to 2018, 2019 levels. And so a lot of it is now back to cost management and saying, hey, we now need to manage our costs. We need to manage our margin. We need to manage, of course, the inventory position and make sure that the supply chain managers at our companies are helping their broader company. In some cases, margin completely eroded during COVID. How do we get back to a healthy, sustainable business? And how does the supply chain organization support that? So inventory conversations, one, cost and, margin management conversations, and two. And then a third one that I think is a really interesting and strategic one, that those conversations had already started pre-COVID, but the shift in diversification of your supply chain. What I mean by that, a lot of our clients are very China heavy exporters, that's where the majority of their factories are located, and they're looking for some diversification in their sourcing strategy. And so the most common places we tend to see, if you're more primarily China and now you're looking to diversify, you see more and more going to Vietnam, more and more going to India, a little bit Taiwan, a little bit kind of broader Southeast Asia. And so those conversations for a lot of customers in the height of COVID got kind of put on pause if you were in that transition. And now we're starting to see that become a focus area again, to say, hey, I want to add some diversification, some resilience. I always want to have a backup plan in a couple of different countries now. And so you see that both on the origin sourcing side, and then same thing on the US destination side. So for example, if you were a company that maybe only had one warehouse located in LA, and that worked great for you through, 2012 to 2019, that probably was a bit of a problem for you in 2020 and 2021. So you start to see a little bit of the drive towards diversification in the US as well. So maybe a West Coast warehouse and an East Coast warehouse, or, another one in the Chicago or even Memphis area. So those are some of the things that we're working through with our clients right now, doing some of this network design. How do we help? What's the impact on rates? What is the best for your type of commodity, where your actual client base is? So those are some of the fun, interesting conversations that I'm having today. So inventory, managing costs, and looking to diversify, both the origin and destination points.
Yeah, that's very interesting because from the reshoring perspective, we help a lot of clients that are looking at rethinking their global manufacturing strategy. And we call it,
That.
usually it's a China plus one. So China
Mhm.
plus one other country, Vietnam, maybe India, Mexico, and then hopefully the US. So at least rebuilding some manufacturing in the US. But I see all these parallels, and the interesting part is that Flexport seems to understand that very well and is positioning services to support that kind of change in strategic thinking. So boy, it's great. It's great to hear this. It's really good. So
If there's
what
one thing I know we
industries?
can rely on is that this industry is always going to be throwing us curveballs. We got to be ready for changes. And so that's certainly our goal at Flexport, is to be flexible, agile, ready for whatever comes at us, and to help our clients sort through it all.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's true in terms of the technology in your business, but you also have to have the right people that think strategically as well. So, we lived through lots of years where, there were a lot of sort of people that were just moving freight, and just doing the execution part, not really thinking about the global environment and geopolitics and how businesses were changing their strategies. So it's just wonderful that you're engaged like that with your clients and can see that and support it in that way. Would you see any growth in any particular industries, or how IT may support the growth in certain areas? I think we at the Reshoring Institute, we see growth, or at least some plastics coming back to the US. Of course, semiconductors, as we all know, coming back in a big way. They won't be online for 5 years or so, but as those kind of supportive industries, pharmaceuticals and so forth. Do you see any growth industries or any patterns out there?
Yeah, so I think, pharma is always going to be, a good growth industry. I think you'll also see, military logistics, anything related to defense, spending, contracting, et cetera, just knowing the broader geopolitical environment out there. For Flexport, for us, we tend to focus a lot on e-com, retail, apparel, and that is coming back strong. We're seeing a lot of strong buying signals there. I think, now that the world economy is fully reopened, was just chatting with a couple of companies that do their, prior to COVID, they're big in back to school. And so we're expecting now that all schools are reopened, everybody's properly back to school every August, September, we're expecting some pickup in those types of industries that will service that. Overall, though, I do see a general quieter trend, if I'm going to be honest, that there's still, like I was saying before, we have a lot of customers that have a lot of inventory on hand. There's a lot of caution and security that people are looking for out there. But I do think there are a number of growth areas in the broader economy.
You mentioned inventory a couple times, and I think that's really interesting too, because in the past, logistics people didn't have a clue about inventory. I mean, they were just, moving product, didn't see how that affected things. And I think things like tangential ideas like inventory, even trade compliance, the movement, alternate ways of moving things, alternate warehouses, these are all strategic ideas that have come of age in the last few years, that are really important when you're looking at the overall landscape of supply chain management. So that's terrific. That's great. Okay, so thank you for all that, Kaitlyn. It was really great. Do you have any closing thoughts or any recommendations for people that are coming up in supply chain as professionals, and particularly women? I mean, you're in a high-powered position, and I think in a position to coach and explain to women how best to take advantage of the steps in their career.
Absolutely. The first thing I will say to anybody who's considering a career in supply chain, it is a fun industry. It is not for the faint of heart. Like we've been discussing, there are a lot of challenges, curveballs thrown our way every day. But if you're somebody who loves those type of challenges, loves innovation, loves seeing things on the ground and being part of, the tangible movement of goods, highly, highly recommend jumping into the supply chain industry. I think it's incredibly fun. I think it's incredibly rewarding. I think to all my females out there, don't be discouraged that supply chain was historically, a male-dominated industry. There are lots and lots of us females out there that are having fun doing it, that are driving, every day. When I'm looking at all of my recruiting, hey, making sure that we're hiring women, that we're running fair practices in our hiring processes and our promotion processes and our feedback cycles. So don't be discouraged at all. It's a fun place to be. And I think it's only going to continue to be more and more relevant in all businesses moving forward.
Yeah, that's terrific. Good advice. Very good advice. Well, thank you for joining us today, Kaitlyn. It was really interesting to talk to you and a fresh look at supply chain and supply chain strategy. Can you give us your contact information if listeners want to get in touch with you or in touch with Flexport?
Absolutely. I will give you my direct contact info, which is just Kaitlyn@flexport.com. And that's Kaitlyn @flexport.com. Reach out to me directly and I will get back to you.
Okay, terrific. Thanks. And you can listen to more supply chain podcasts, The Frictionless Supply Chain, posted on Supply Chain Management Review, on the landing page, on iTunes, on Google Podcasts, on Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. And you can reach me, Rosemary Coates, at rcoates@reshoringinstitute.org, and visit our website, www.reshoringinstitute.org, where we publish all of our research on manufacturing in America. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.